Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah alayhi afdalus salah wa man wala amma ba'd. So as I said, I'll prepare you for a test, okay? I will give you some material to look over. So, because I know that your notes are probably different from one student to the other, so I totally get that. I will give you exactly what I want you to know, and the test will always be multiple choice, okay? We'll make it easy, inshaAllah ta'ala. From what I've known, as far as I can remember, nobody has ever failed a test of mine. I've never, unless a student just didn't show up or they just put Salamu Alaikum on the test and that was it, they handed it back to me. Yeah. Other than that, I don't think I have ever failed a student in anything Islamic ever. So, not to worry. Let's continue with our study of the magnificent Surah Al-Ahzaab. Okay, there's a couple things that we want to look at before we start today. I believe this is where we paused, right? 27. Yeah, verse number 27. Yeah. Yeah, وَأَنزَلَ الَّذِينَ ظَاهَرُوهُم مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. Yeah, we did look at this, مِنْ صَيَاصِيهِمْ. We looked at this word صَيَاصِيَةً. And then that brings us to this verse is where I believed we paused. Okay. This is the last verse about Surah Al-Ahzaab. Okay? When I say the last verse, this is the last verse of the surah that's going to link some sort of lesson from the battle itself. As far as what happened in the battle and how the Muslims navigated through Al-Ahzaab, that conversation is already finished. Now we are just looking at the aftermath. Okay, so these verses from 25 to 27, these verses are more focused on the aftermath of Surah Al-Ahzaab. So as you can see, وَأَوْرَثَكُمْ أَرْضَهُمْ وَدِيَارَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ وَأَرْضًا لَمْ تَطَئُوهَا. 4 things came out of this battle. Number 1, Allah has also caused you to take over their lands. So the real estate for the companions and the Prophet ﷺ has now expanded. Remember, as after each battle, it gave them, especially the battles that they were victorious in, it gave them the power and the authority to control, and whatever land was available to them, nobody claimed, that land was also now under their name or their ownership or their property. And as part of Al-Uhud, the Battle of Uhud also gave them the opportunity to expand as well. So after the Battle of Uhud, the landscape of Medina continued to expand. More and more land was under control of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah is reminding all of them that this is not because of something you have done or acquired. This is something, وَأَوْرَثَكُمْ, we gave this to you. So He, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is reminding them, He is the one that caused you to take over their lands, the homes and wealth, as well as lands that you have not even set foot in. There are areas of both Mecca and Medina and even some of the cities in between that the Messenger ﷺ and his companions could never cross through. They could never visit. They could never do anything. Because of, as these battles continue, this is one of the most important outcomes of all the battles, is an expansion of landscape, territory, and things of that nature. Okay? So this ayah is just a reminder to them. It was not because you were victorious in the battle. It was because that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed and gave permission for this to take place. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرًا. And Allah is most capable and He has the qadr over all things. وَلَمْ تَطَئُوهَا. See this last part of the ayah, which is lands you have not set foot on. That's لَمْ تَطَئُوهَا. This here, one tafsir mentions that it is in reference to what is to come. So not necessarily land that they've never seen or touched before, but perhaps there are more battles to come that they will be victorious in as well. So this last part of the ayah, in your notes, you just want to note that it has both of those meanings. It has, number one, whatever expansion they were able to receive and get from wealth and homes and land now, after Al-Ahzaab. And number two, it's directly related to the battles that were to come afterwards and the land and wealth that they would get from the future battles. That is also being promised to them. So things are looking up for the believers now. Right? There is hope for their future. And it looks like things are gradually starting to come together in terms of the Prophet ﷺ's governance of Medina and the hopes of him being able to freely visit Mecca and do Hajj and Umrah and all of that. All of these things now are going to start to manifest. So Mecca could not have looked worse at this phase. The Battle of Uhud and Ahzab and others are taking notice that the Quraysh now cannot do it themselves. So you see what also is happening? That others now are starting to take notice that the Quraysh are weakening. Right? They keep losing one battle after another after another. The 6th year, the Prophet ﷺ said, let's go for Hajj. Anybody know why? Why did this happen? 6th year after the Hijrah, why did the Prophet ﷺ say that, keep in mind, Mecca is still restricted. It's off limits for them to go and visit. Why after Al-Ahzab, he tells the companions, okay, they haven't even figured out how they're going to get into Mecca, but he says, let's go. Why did he do that? Think, why would he do that? Things are really tense. They just came out of this battle. Now they're going to go and confront what could potentially turn into another battle, and they're going to have to travel for at least 1 month to get there, and they have no idea what is waiting for them. Why would the Messenger ﷺ do that? Yeah.
Because Allah commanded them.
Okay. The companions, in terms of just the morale, the strength and the focus and the confidence and all of those things, how is everybody feeling at this point?
I think strong. They're feeling good, strong.
So for the most part, right, it's safe to say, because remember we talked about a verse that when the companions saw the Quraysh entering from all corners, what did they say? They started praising Allah. This is هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Like, this is what Allah and His Messenger ﷺ promised us. So they were in a good state, good frame of mind. Now, after that this had happened and the Quraysh were defeated, they retreated. They couldn't do anything. They had no choice but to leave. The confidence is one step higher, stronger, whatever you want to call it. The whole morale of the companions and all of Medina at this time is very high. So basically, this is sort of a strategy the Prophet ﷺ is using, that everybody already now feels that the Quraysh stand no chance against them. There's 3 battles now that happened in a row where the Quraysh failed. The Battle of Uhud, they first won it, but then things happened afterwards. But the point is that they were defeating the Quraysh. They brought all of their wealth and muscle, and they still couldn't stop the Muslims, who are a small group, a minority group, and they had literally next to nothing with them. So all of that has been done. Let's go and see if we can sort of make a path for us to get to Hajj. What do you learn from this strategy the Prophet ﷺ is doing? What do you learn from that? We kind of had a sort of mini example of this in today's class just before we started. If I came in here, right, and I said to you, okay, here's the test, here's the question, go for it. tell me 3 things that you learned about Surah Al-Ahzab. Chances are that all of you already came with this understanding that the teacher said we will be tested today. You all went through your notes. You sat here, got yourself focused. You already got yourself into that mode. That's exactly what happened here. What was the benefit of that? What do you sort of get out of that small experience of, okay, a test is going to happen, let me get myself in gear? What's the benefit to go through that whole process? Did you benefit? Okay. Anything else? Prepared, okay. When something needs to be accomplished and it needs to be done, and as long as you go through all of the steps to prepare, the sunnah is to go through it. Like, as long as you do the things you need to do to prepare, the result of that is with Allah. Your job and my job is to just go through, but ensure that you are prepared. That is a formula and a principle of life. Does that make sense? Your whole life you have to do that. You have to go through the things Allah puts in front of you every single day, including the people you talk to, the conversations you're involved in, the things that you hear. You didn't hear those things, you didn't talk to those people just because you're in their life or you are at a particular place at a particular time. No, you were chosen to be at that moment to hear those comments. You were chosen to be alive right now in 2024. The end of this month, you're chosen to be here. So when a believer can take and sort of internalize life in that way where it's a constant, I'm prepared, let's see where this goes. And every conversation, you're always focused on what I can get out of it to make me a better human being, to make me a better Muslim. There's nothing in your life that you will go through except you will find khair and benefit out of it. Nothing. Even the worst of it, you'll walk away and say, Alhamdulillah, I still learned something from that. That's the goal for all humans. You know, some people find that feeling or that sense of confidence and contentment, they find it in like material things. You know, as long as I look around me and I'm like, man, I got this house now. I worked hard for it, so it's mine. I got, my wife needed a car, my husband needed a car. Everybody, kids need to tuition fees sorted out, anything that people want. Alhamdulillah, I got us to a good place. Some people look at that and they sort of feel like, I prepped, I went through it, and I got the result that I needed. Now I can face the world. Until one of them gets sick. Then you realize, man, I could pay to fix my home, to fix my car, but I can't get, no matter how much I pay, I can't fix my health. The believer doesn't have this problem, the mu'min. They don't have this problem. They are always, because they're always in this mode, in this gear like the companions are. They've gone through something, they embraced it with iman and faith in Allah. So now, gradually, the Messenger ﷺ is saying, you know what? Now it's a good time to go for Hajj. Now is the time to do this. So the hypocrites are thrilled by this decision. Why? They're absolutely thrilled and ecstatic that the Prophet ﷺ said, let's go and perform Hajj. Why?
They still believe that Quraysh can defeat them.
Yeah. They're like, again? He's going to set you guys up? Now you're going to go there? You're not even going to wait for the Quraysh to come here? Now you guys are going to pack and go there? Oh man, they had a party with this whole situation. It was said that before this journey, or the attempt for the first Hajj, it was said that this is where the hypocrites were at their peak in Medina. Like, there was never a thing that the Prophet ﷺ could say, not even khutbah he could give, except that hypocrites were in the jama'ah. Remember how hypocrites are living amongst them, right? They go for Fajr and they're praying in the front line, Saf al-awwal. They're fasting in Ramadan. They're there at the masjid for every salah. They got beards, they got niqabs on, they got everything. Like, you cannot, identify a hypocrite from anyone else. So they were very good at what they did. And hypocrites in general are very good at what they do. It's really difficult for you and I to sort of understand and detect and know who these people are. It's almost impossible. That's why the ulama, they teach us that you and I, as average layman Muslims, we never take that label and say to anybody, you are a hypocrite. We can't do that. Because there's a whole process behind it, and it involves more than just one person. There's a series of different people involved for something like that. You're basically saying this person is a person of the hellfire. Who's going to say that? Right? So the hypocrites here, they continue to do exactly what they've been doing it all along. Muhammad's going to go and set you guys up just for Hajj. Hajj, you don't even need to do that right now. You can do it next year, or at least let's wait. This is what he does to you all. The Prophet ﷺ family, his family life, his wives, and the realities of marriage, this is what is to come now. Some uncomfortable subjects now are going to happen, and some of them will be really difficult for us to have. Do you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
So you said at the end that there's 4 things that came out of this battle.
Yeah.
I think I missed, maybe I misunderstood.
So number 1, he has caused you to take over lands. وَأَوْرَثَكُمْ أَرْضَهُمْ is number 2. So أَوْرَثَكُمْ is you inherited. So you are now in a position to inherit something, to receive something. That's number 1. Number 2, what is it that they're getting? Is they're getting land. Okay? Which land is this? This is a land that they were not able to inherit or touch. Any companion died. This part, you have to remember, land is money, it's wealth, it's everything to these companions. Okay? So land is survival. Land is the insurance that they need to ensure that those who come after them, when they pass away, there's some wealth and status that's left behind. Diyarahum, homes, huts, whatever you want to call it. وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ وَأَرْضًا لَمْ تَطَئُوهَا. So homes are singled out as one. Wealth in general is the next, as well as the last one. وَأَرْضًا لَمْ تَطَئُوهَا. So the possibility of land that they've never known, seen, or touched, they can also inherit as well. Okay, so here's what's going to happen now. This is going to be, as we get to specific verses, there are going to be subjects that we have to talk about that it's going to, I don't know how else to say it, but it might just get a little uncomfortable for some students, right? And alhamdulillah, from as far as I can see, we don't have anybody here that's below the age of 13 or 12, right? I know that some of you bring your kids with you, but I don't think any of them fall into that age bracket. So we should be fine, and we'll discuss them as we get to those verses, okay? Now we're going to start to get into some of the things that are related to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. It is this part of Surah Al-Ahzaab that the ulama of tafsir say every single practicing Muslim woman must study the surah. Okay? This is a surah that helps her speak about and develop this sense of courage to talk about issues that are so personal, that are so intimate to her, but if she mentions anything, it'll just create trouble. Perhaps maybe the community, perhaps maybe her husband, it would just create a huge problem. So what tends to happen very often is the wife or the woman would just keep it to herself. She will just stay quiet and take whatever it is and just deal with that. That becomes her whole life. This part of the surah came to break that cycle and to sort of empower her now that no matter how personal these issues are, no matter how you might feel that, or the husband might feel that he's being degraded and he's being put down in a certain way. Maybe his pride and ego gets in the way. How dare you talk to me like that? I'm your husband, da da da. And you guys know the story. You don't even have to be married to know what I'm talking about. That's where the surah comes in. It's going to start to really bring some of those issues out. And for that sister that struggles with this, when she reads these ayat, some of them might really shock you that the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they did not shy if they had to speak or ask the Prophet ﷺ anything. Let me give you an example. Listen to this narration, okay? The Prophet ﷺ, one of the, see this verse here? Yeah, verse number 28. Once we come to it, I just want you to know it's verse number 28, okay? One of the reasons scholars say that that verse was revealed is an incident that happened. Some of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ came to him, not all but a few of them. It doesn't say exactly how many, but some. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, we want you to give us a little more. What are they asking for? They are asking for more wealth, inheritance, just overall support. Why are they doing this now? Why are they doing this now? After Ahzab, what did the Muslims inherit? They got some wealth, right? They got some wealth. They got additional arms and material and different things, right? So now, for the first time in the history of Medina, there's a surplus of wealth. This has never happened. Now they actually have areas where they store this excess of material, food, and wealth. This has never happened to them. Prior to this battle, the Muslims, including the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, everybody basically, what we would say, they were penny pinchers, right? You literally, every single penny and dollar that you spend has to be accounted for, has to be thought through. Now they don't have this problem. So rightfully, it makes sense that these wives came to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and requested for him to sort of increase what he provides and he gives to them. Before I even begin reading this narration, what do you learn from this?
But that's not a bad thing, is it?
Especially, you know, the mothers and the wives that are here. You've been married very long. I think almost all of you that are married have been married longer than me. So you would have more experience and you would have a better understanding of this situation. You, the wife, request from your husband, listen, you know, we've always had a Toyota. And, you know, I mean, I like Mercedes. Our business is going really well, so I want to trade in. That's all. You think that's appropriate? Is there something wrong?
No.
She can ask for an Emirates Airbus 380 if she wants. Like she said, I want an airplane. I don't want no like any air. I want the largest commercial airplane in existence. She can ask for anything she wants. Asking, there is no problem with. But asking with wisdom, asking, you know, things that you know you're in the situation that it can be provided for, that's your haqq. You have the right to do that. Like, that's not something the husband allows you to do. You understand? Allah already gave you the right to do that. You don't need anybody's permission to ask for if you see that the marriage and life is in a good place and more has you have no restriction to do that. So that's what happened with the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. You want to know how he reacted? Listen to what he reacted. He reacted, and after they asked him this question, the Prophet ﷺ did not come to see any of them for an entire month. And he did not even, listen to this, وَلَمْ يَخْرُجْ إِلَىٰ أَصْحَابِهِ, and he didn't even come out and meet none of the Sahabas for 1 month. Now I'm going to ask you again. Is that a question you should ask your husband? Should you ask him that? Now what you're going to see is that there is a difference between the wives of the Prophet ﷺ and wives of husbands, like Muslim wives to Muslim husbands, like in our day and age. The wives of the Prophet ﷺ, you're going to see this massive separation. The expectations of the wives of the Prophet of Allah are a totally different level of expectation than average Muslims like me and you. You understand? That's why he pauses for an entire month. What is he doing? No one knows. The narration doesn't mention not even a sentence. It just says that he didn't go near them for a month, and he didn't even talk to the companions for a whole month. He just came in, led salah, left. That was it. So look what happened. Imagine if, okay, no. Let me just read it, okay? So 1 month goes by. Listen to what happens. They start asking, the wives as well as companions, all together start asking. They said, "Ma sha'nuhu?" What's going on with him? وَكَانُوا يَقُولُونَ, and they were all starting to come to their own conclusions. You know, this doesn't even sound like a hadith. It sounds like somebody wrote this yesterday about our Muslim communities today, right? They said, the Prophet ﷺ divorced his wives. That's why he never came out for the whole month and talked to them. He divorced all of them. Somebody said this. Somebody just literally came up with this whole, you know why? Because they got divorced. He let them all go. You know, we all can relate to this. I'm not saying that we say it, but we've all heard these kinds of allegations and, speculation that goes around, where people pick something out of something they seem to think they understand, but they don't. So they just come up with these assumptions and they kind of speculate and they put two and two together, draw a conclusion. Yeah, this is, I think, what happened. Actually, you know what? I've seen this before. This is what really happened. That's what's happening here right now. Look what happens. So this rumor goes around that he divorced them. Umar radiallahu anhu, he says to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, I'm going to find out what happened and then I'm going to tell it to you guys, okay? I'll be that person. What do you learn from that? Umar took it upon himself to go and ask the Prophet ﷺ. What do we get out of that? What do we learn from that? If it's important and it involves you somehow, whatever is being talked about or whatever incident happens, if it involves you and it involves me, and we genuinely need some answers, then certainly somebody can be that middle person and say, you know what, let me go and figure this out. But not just anybody, not the one person who we know has a reputation that when they get a little bit of news, they become the headquarters of backbiting for all of Canada, right? They become the head office. Not that person. Who is this man? Umar radiallahu anh. The man who was closest to being a prophet after the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, if there ever was one. If there ever was a prophet after him, it would have been Umar radiallahu anh. So the right man is going to go do this. So he goes to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, did you divorce all of them? He doesn't say, Ya Rasulullah, 1 month, what are you doing? How could you do this to them? And start to scold him. You can't behave like this. You can't act this way. You're this, this, and this. You know who gets a lot of this? Shuyukh get this. A lot of it. You know, there is like this sort of image that is, the consequence of anybody who does this kind of work, the expectation of always being in a good mood, smile, dress right, look right, feel right, act right, all the time. And I've seen it where some very well-respected shuyukh Like I seen one imam years ago getting out of a parking lot, and somebody was trying to like push their way in front of him, and was doing it in such a way, it was very, very like obvious the person who was doing this didn't care about anything, just tugged his way, almost like hit his car. And so the sheikh honked his horn and just said, "What are you doing? Just wait your turn." This became an enormous problem in the entire community in that masjid, and it reached the administration. And they put this sheikh in a meeting to reassess his value to the community, right? So this whole like image that's been pasted and it's permanently stuck, these expectations that they always have to be on point, they always have to be on. That's what's happening here. But the Umar radiallahu anh doesn't get into nothing. He just focuses on one thing, okay? Because he knows that the Prophet ﷺ could be dealing with something. There could have been some problem. It's none of his business. So he just asked, "Ya Rasulullah, did you divorce them?" Because that's what people are saying. So Prophet ﷺ says, what do you think he said? You think he gave an explanation? It's one letter. He says, "La." No. Anything else? That's it. You learn from every letter in this narration something, especially how to deal with rumors and scandals and things of that nature. Umar then says, "Ya Rasulullah, I went into the masjid, and the Muslims there are saying that the Prophet ﷺ divorced his wives. Has there been an ayah sent to you that I can tell them you did not do this or you did do this? Is there a verse I can just go and announce it to them?" Now this is where the exception happens, because he's the leader of the ummah. So what we are starting to see here, that Surah Al-Ahzaab opens an area that is very, very private and personal for the Prophet ﷺ, but it still affects the overall atmosphere and interaction and relationship of all of his followers. So this is where the exception is. For an imam, if somebody asked him, I was like, "Yeah, I saw you with some other woman. Where's so-and-so, your wife, for 27 years? And he could say, "Well, we got divorced. I got, a long time ago, and I got married again. This is my new wife, blah, 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 blah." That's it. The imam now could say, "It's none of your business." That's it. There's a famous speaker, all of you know, was asked this in a public forum. All of you know. I won't say, but just what I want you to understand is that don't think that these scenarios don't happen. They're very real in this day and age. Yeah, a speaker was asked, how many wives do you have, or how many wives you were married? And his answer, in front of like thousands of people, he just looked at the MC and said, "Listen, in all respect, it's none of your business." Done. Yeah, it went viral. I won't say who, but you all know. Anyhow, so قال نعم. Umar radiallahu anhu says, "Ya Rasulullah, can I go and let them know that what they're saying about you, it didn't happen? Can I go and say to them, the rumors is not true?" Listen to the Prophet ﷺ's answer. He says, "Na'am in shit." He goes like, "Yes, if you want." He doesn't tell him, "Yes, you must go. If this is what they're saying about me, then go deal with it." He says, "If you want, go and tell them." What do you learn from this? It's a really, really powerful lesson that is extremely difficult to implement. What do you learn from his response? He says, "Yes, Umar, if you want." When somebody talks about you and you hear who it is or what's being said, naturally, how do people respond to that? Does it sound like this? "Oh, I know him. He said that about me. Watch when I see him at the masjid tomorrow." All right? That's how an average person would respond. Oh, I see him at work. I'm going to give it to him. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go tell his boss. I'm going to tell the admin. I'm going dot, 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 dot. Look what the Prophet ﷺ says. Yeah. What you learn from this is sometimes you just have to wait. People get tired of talking about the same thing, and you will be in the past. They will find something else to talk about. Just wait it out. Most of the times when it comes to rumors and gossip, that's the best response, is just to ignore it. See what happened to Aisha radiallahu anha in the first page of Surah An-Nur? The whole rumor that got spread about her, that she was with somebody else, all because the hypocrites saw another companion with Aisha coming into Medina, and they don't see her husband anywhere. Aisha's up to no good. And it went all over Medina. What did Aisha radiallahu anha do? You know what she did? She went home. She never spoke to anybody and answered any of the rumors, because every single night she was just in tahajjud. Just praying to Allah that, oh Allah, you decide what is the best outcome for all of this. The ayah gets sent to the Prophet ﷺ. He announces it to everyone. Nobody uttered a sentence about Aisha radiallahu anha again after that. Sometimes you just have to let the storm calm down on its own and let it pass. So the Prophet ﷺ says, if you want, go ahead. So Umar radiallahu anh, he goes back. He goes back into the masjid. He calls everybody in a loud voice and he announces to all of them, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not divorce any of his wives. And an ayah was revealed. This is another verse or a portion of it in Surah An-Nisa, that if Umar did not do this, then the ayah in another surah says that this rumor, the people would have validated this. They would have confirmed it and turned it into the truth. You know, Malcolm X once said that we live in a time where somebody could repeat a lie over and over and over, and eventually the lie becomes the truth. Right? It's so real when you think about propaganda, when you think a lot of the things that the media do, and take people who are very normal and innocent and turn them into enemies and shaitan, and these are the worst, just by simply repeating things that are untrue to the point where the public now deem it as the truth. The media doesn't do this alone. Have you ever listened to comedians? And you know how sometimes comedians, they would choose a particular ethnicity, right? They'll be like, oh, the Spanish people, when they eat, and everybody gets a kick out of it. The Indians, when they do this, and they'll do this, and they'll go on this worldwide tour, have 75 shows repeating the same thing, and before you know it, you listen to that enough, you start to be like, oh my God, I see that every day. Wow, that is so true. Yeah, they are so wild, they're so messy. Now you start convincing yourself that that's exactly how whoever he's talking about, that's exactly how all of them are. And you take this sort of mindset now without even realizing that you do it, all from something like a comedian, right? So that tool is extremely powerful. So this is why Umar now stands up and he says this. And an ayah is revealed that if he didn't do that, the people would have ran with this. And the Prophet then, alayhi salatu wasalam, comes back, and after a month or so, and he comes with another verse. That's this verse, okay? When he finally sort of begins to speak and meet his wives again, he goes directly to them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him this verse. The Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam says, women and perfume have been made dear to me, and the comfort of my eye has been placed in prayer. I put this narration because this is sort of a precursor to some of the conversations we're going to be having in this section of Surah Al-Ahzaab. What is the point that I try to get at here is the most pious, modest example, the most perfect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. Do you see what the first part of this hadith it says? He says, women and perfume, I love those the most. If you didn't know the Prophet ﷺ said this, Just listen to that sentence, and what kind of person would you think would say such a thing? And wouldn't it kind of sound a bit like offensive? All you care about is women and perfume? Really? What kind of man are you? That's the conversation we're going to have. This is the greatest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that opening sentence of the hadith, that's why I put it there. And then, of course, the salah, جُعِلَتْ قُرَّةُ عَيْنِي الصَّلَاة, like the salah has become a comfort to my eyes. So I put that to sort of just put your mind into a place where we're going to now dig deeper. It's a really uncomfortable thing to bring up, especially with somebody of that caliber, the Prophet of Allah. We're going to understand why this happens, what this actually means, and the fact that he even says a statement like that. Wasn't he worried or concerned that at some point somebody's going to take this statement of him and bring it out of context and then label him, he's a this and he's a that? What kind of man is this that you follow? That's what we have to deal with till now. So show us how, and these ayat will show us how the wives of the Prophet ﷺ become examples for women that the Prophet ﷺ cannot be. Meaning there are certain things he cannot be that person to either be the example or to have the conversation. One time, a woman came to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him, Ya Rasulullah, my monthly cycle is complete. How do I prepare myself to go and pray? So the Prophet ﷺ tells this woman, he says to her, you need to take a shower, you need to use this material or this item to cleanse yourself, and then you can go and pray. And it's written out, right? What she should do. You know what she says? Ya Rasulullah, I don't understand. What do you mean exactly? So he repeats it a second time. She still says, Ya Rasulullah, I don't get it. Like, how exactly do I use those things to clean myself and be ready? I just want to make sure I do it right. 3 times this woman asks him. The 4th time, you know what his answer to her was? You know what? Go ask Aisha radiallahu anha. She'll explain it to you. Which tells you there was only so far he could go. There's only so much he would say. After this point, it's not appropriate even for him, alayhi salatu wasalam, to go further, especially in person. Imagine if somebody goes up to an imam, okay, a sister goes up and asks a similar question, right? Some imams can handle it, some simply can't. So those things as well, we're going to see it, and it's just going to go deeper and deeper and deeper in some of the most uncomfortable things, inshallah. But of course, it will be beneficial for all of us. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam goes back to his wives, and he basically says to them this command: O Prophet, Allah tells him, قُلْ لِأَزْوَاجِكَ, say to your wives, إِن كُنْتَ تُرِدْنَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتُهَا, if you desire the life of this world and its luxury, then come. وَزِينَتَهَا فَتَعَالَيْنَ أُمَتِّعْكُنَّ وَأُصَرِّحْكُنَّ سَرَاحًا جَمِيلًا. I will give you a suitable compensation for divorce and let you go graciously. So you see what happened? Remember these wives, what did they ask from him in the beginning? More money, a little bit more comfort, Ya Rasulullah, we don't have a couch, let's just get some cushions, like just something a little nicer.
Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
So, just one point, and then we break for Salah, is that now that this ayah is given to him, now we're going to see for the first time in the entire Quran, for the first time, that the wives now are going to be given a higher status and level of expectation from any of the wives in the ummah from then until the end of time. So all of the believing Muslim women, we are going to see that everybody else is in one category, but the wives specifically are in a completely separate category. The expectations are higher. The laws of their marriage with the Prophet ﷺ are slightly different. They're altered. But here's the point. Number 28, just make sure you make a note. This is one of the abused verses in the Quran. This verse here, unfortunately, some husbands who don't take the time to understand the context, who don't study it, use this and they sort of use it to their advantage, to affirm more control and other things with their marriages. So we're going to just touch on some of those things after Salah, insha'Allah ta'ala. Okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Isha would be one. So Isha would be like just before. Oh right. So
Yeah.
Isha would be like almost 7 o'clock then.
Yeah, and the time is gonna go back, yeah, so it'll be like that. So it'll be good to get it out, like, not, get it a pray and then start class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be hard
That's
not
probably.
to.
I'm thinking that's what he might do next week.
Yes, okay. Alright.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ولقد خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما في 6 أيام وما مسنا من لغوب فاصبر على ما يقولون وسبح بحمد ربك قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل الغروب ومن الليل فسبحه وإدبار السجود واستمع يوم ينادي المنادي من مكان قريب يوم يسمعون الصيحة بالحق ذلك يوم الخروج إنا نحن نحيي ونميت وإلينا المصير يوم تشقق الأرض عنهم سراعا ذلك حشر علينا يسير نحن أعلم بما يقولون وما أنت عليهم بجبار فذكر بالقرآن من يخاف وعيد الله أكبر يا الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله 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 الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين الله أكبر.
Yalla. Okay, Bismillah. Let's go on for about another 20 minutes or so, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So, last point that we mentioned with respect to this ayah is that this is one of the abused verses in the Quran. The reason why is typically this is a verse that is used to hijack a scenario between the husband and wife where the husband would claim or exaggerate the position he is put in when his wife will demand for more material things. And it could be anything, like they have a stove and she's like, okay, you know what, can we upgrade the stove? It will save electricity. Or she just wants something nice. There is no problem financially for him or the household to afford things like this. But if he doesn't want to do it, what happens occasionally, it's not very often, but it does happen. I've met couples who've had this problem where the husband will come to me, pull me aside and say things to me like, just talk to my wife, all she cares about is everything has to match in the house, this has to be perfect, has to be A grade, it's got to be top-notch technology, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's a silly issue to exaggerate, especially if it's not something that she typically does. Then once in a while, it's not an issue. And the thing is, this is one of the verses that he would claim, look, the sunnah of the wise of the Prophet, look at this. If they wanted anything from the dunya, they were divorced. Is that what you want? Over a stove? Or something like that, right? It's very silly. And this is just one of a million examples of people cherry picking an ayah and just using it to their advantage. So the first thing that I want to highlight is how this ayah begins. See this? Ya ayyuhan nabi, O Prophet. Remember, every time Allah calls the Prophet by his title, every time this happens in Quran, it's such high priority for him. This is Quran's way of saying, stop everything you're doing and fulfill this instruction, fulfill this command. So, Ya ayyuhan nabi, pay attention to what comes after it. It's just like Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, like the famous companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu once said, anytime you hear Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, prepare yourself to receive a command or instructions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every time Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu happens, Allah tells us to do something or not do something. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, you can think of Ya ayyuhan nabi as his version of Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. This is explicit, it's directed to him. So that's the first thing when it comes to Ya ayyuhan nabi. Second point, why not just talk directly to his wives? Ya azwajun nabi. Why does Allah speak to the Prophet and tell him, go tell your wives this? Why not just talk to them directly? Why do you think Allah tells the Prophet to go do this? Again, this is a pattern all throughout Quran. What do you think?
Perhaps in response to his turmoil within himself, to ease his worries.
Okay, to ease his worries. So allowing him to do this is more to his advantage than it is as if Allah speaks directly to them. Okay? There's a verse 30 and 31 of Surah An-Nur. It sounds like this. وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ or قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. Allah says to the believing men, O Prophet, قُل, Prophet, go say to them that they need to cover their eyes and protect their honor and their privates. Allah could have just said, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu ghuddu absarakum, O people of Iman, protect your eyes, lower your gaze. But instead, Allah tells the Prophet to do that. Next ayah, verse 31 in Surah An-Nur, Allah gives the exact same instruction to the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, but this time go say to the believing women. Why not just talk to them directly? Write this down, okay? Say it again? Okay, he's definitely a leader, but on that note, does everybody else automatically by default respect him as a leader? No. People still question him. People still doubt him. People still disrespect him. This is one of Qur'an's way to bring honor and respect to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You go do this. Okay, so the first thing is, this is priority for him. Drop everything you're doing and go take care of this. Number two, this is also to protect the honor and the dignity of the Prophet. If you listen to him, you automatically listen to the Creator. So to raise his honor, raise the trust, and protect his reputation, all of those things for him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Third point, this ayah, take a look at it. It says, go speak to your wives, say to them, and the message is, if you desire the life of this world and its luxury, then come. Meaning, go ahead and have it. And if that's all you want and nothing else, that's priority for you, then the thing that you get from me is going to be a divorce. But we're going to talk about the word that's used here. Talaq is the most common word for divorce. It's not mentioned in this ayah at all. There's a different word that's used. Ya ayyuhan nabi, qul li azwajik. Here's the third reason why it's important that the Prophet does this. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks directly to them, and or the Prophet sits with them, they're physically in his presence and he's physically in their presence, and he gives them this ayah, now there's an additional reason or incentive for them not to only, they already love and respect Allah, they already believe in him, but this is to also, in a very subtle and beautiful way, to put the wives in a situation where they also increase their respect and acceptance of the instructions coming not just from the Prophet, from their husband. You see how different it is? Usually when the husband says, okay, look, you know, we're going to change things in this house. We have a stove, 6 burners. There's only 2 of us. We're going to get a single burner. Okay, because we need to save the electricity and we don't want to get too attached to this dunya thing. Now, that's a really extreme example, but the outcome you want to have in a situation like that is for her to say, you know what, if that's all that we can afford and I can still, you know, we can still do things, we can still live and survive and inshallah, bismillah, you know, and she does it and he does it and they adjust their lifestyle. Now her respect for him, his respect for her love for him, his love for her, the relationship now takes one step forward. There's an additional layer of acceptance, cooperation, respect. So one or third reason the ulama say is that the Prophet, by him sitting there, talking to them, they see him and they're in his presence and they hear his voice, automatically, whatever comes out of his mouth, they still love him more for talking to them, for giving them the time and the attention. Everybody understand? So it's kind of to build a bit of that intimate and private relationship of love and respect, to increase that a little bit more, because now they're hearing it directly from his voice. So all of these subtleties are extremely important. Like the ulama write it down in their tafsir, and they preserve it for this reason, that these are things, despite how subtle they are, they're extremely important in maintaining that love and harmony that a relationship needs. Okay? قُلْ لِأَزْوَاجِكَ إِن كُنْتُنَّ تُرِيدْنَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. Now let's talk about the instruction. So go and say to them, if you desire the life of this world and its luxury, first of all, is that haram? For a wife to be like, you know, I just love to have a nice big home, a comfortable life, and you know, a beautiful car, and travel the world with my husband. Is that haram? No. Why not? If you can, so there's one rule then. If the poor man is working that minimum wage job at Walmart or Canadian Tire and say, listen, you know, BMW just released their new series. I want it. If you don't get it for me, it's over. That's a different scenario. So we're not talking about that at all. This area is the extreme scenario I just painted for you. That despite whatever financial situation the husband is in, when it comes to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, everybody knows and understands the Prophet ﷺ is extremely poor. Okay? He starved more days than all the companions. He went on more days living in his home where the burner was never lit, meaning there was nothing to cook. Anytime they had some food, like even just some extra dates, children and orphans used to come at their homes begging for something to eat. And his wife Aisha radiallahu anha, she would give them. They would be left with nothing. He'd come home later. Ya Aisha, is there anything for us to have? No, Ya Rasulullah, so and so happened and I gave them the last of what we had. He would remain silent. Done. That was almost his entire life. Alayhi salatu wasalam. Struggling, suffering, and when it came to the status of financial status, it was literally next to nothing. Gifts were being poured to him all the time. He would accept a lot of those gifts. But there are narrations of him also giving those gifts away to other companions, those who needed more than him. He made that ultimate sacrifice, alayhi salatu wasalam. Now it's his wife's turn to do the same. So this is not about them wanting to attach themselves to a luxurious life. This is the first instruction and command to the wives. You are no longer just wives anymore. Now you are in a separate category because you are all married to this man, alayhi salatu wasalam. So when we look at this ayah now, that if this is what your priority is, وَزِينَتَهَا فَتَعَالَيْنَ. The Prophet ﷺ says, فَتَعَالَيْنَ. Did I write the name? Okay, I didn't write the meaning. Okay. فَتَعَالَيْنَ is this is one of the verbs in Arabic to say with ease, without hesitation, go ahead, just have it. Go ahead, take it. You know, like if you go to your favorite coffee shop or a juice store or something, you usually get a small, but then one day you go in there and you're like, man, we should just get a large. I love this drink. And whoever's paying, you tell your kids, go ahead, just take it. No big deal. You don't even have to ask me, just order a large, it's all good. That's called fata'alayn. So Allah is saying to the Prophet, tell them that if this is what all you care about, then that's okay, just go ahead, have it. Fata'alayn gives the impression, and it's indirectly also highlighting this dunya world is worthless. You want it? Go ahead, take it. I don't lose anything. You're actually not going to gain anything by taking it, by attaching yourself to it. That's fata'alayn. It's a really remarkable verb to use to describe how he allows them. Fata'alayn also is, you got to do it. I ain't giving you nothing. Okay? Fata'alayn, if this is what you want, you take it. You're not going to get that from me. Here's the word that is used. Umatti'kunna, this is the word that's used to divorce here. Wa usarrihkun, from saraha. Let it go. Saraha is not a word used to divorce anymore. Okay? This is not a word that's used anymore. Divorce has several terms. You have talaq, you have khula', you have fasakh. You have several different words to describe a divorce, depending on how the divorce should happen. The most common term that we all are used to is talaq, right? That's the most generic term. Usarrihkunna, saraha, is more or less like a polite, easy, no process involved. If this is what you want, you are free to go. That's the divorce. It's done. There's no waiting period, none of that stuff. Usarrihkun, go ahead, have it, we're done. That's how the Prophet ﷺ gives the option of separation or divorce to his wives. It's this word that's used. Talaq comes later, right now. Now, one more thing you need to know about this verse. After the Prophet ﷺ, went into, I guess you could say, isolation for about a month, he came back to his wives, and he came back to them with this ayah. After he taught them this verse, there was about 9 women, most of them his wives, but there were others that were sitting there hearing and listening to these instructions. Who is the first? Now, what has to happen? These wives have to respond and affirm and accept that this is the life they want, where they give up the dunya, they make the sacrifice, and they stick with him, alayhi salatu wasalam. See, they basically pledge to him, we will sacrifice, it's going to be a tough life, we will struggle with you, and this is how, like, you have that pledge from us. Who's the first wife to do that? You know why that's important? That is also the beginning of the great honor and love and respect. This is the first ayah that also elevates the status of Aisha radiallahu anha. After that she was given, just imagine this, okay? You are given, Aisha radiallahu anha, she is given the opportunity from an-Nabi to say, Ya Aisha, you go first. Do you accept this way of life? Immediately, without hesitation, Aisha radiallahu anha does what she always does. Anything for the sake of the deen, for the sake of her husband, for the sake of Allah. She says, absolutely, Ya Rasulullah. I pledge that this is the way of life that I will sacrifice, and I'm with you 100%. You know what happened after that? All the others followed. Because why? Every one of them knew who Aisha radiallahu anha was. They respected her so much. Whoa, if Aisha agreed, that's it. It's done. We're definitely gonna do the same. So all the wives continued. They all accepted this. Now here's the point. When we say now that they will sacrifice and struggle, and this is what is needed from his wives. What we just established that having luxurious and things and comfortable life is not a problem. What's the problem here? Why is it that they had to give this up? Can't they be pious, devoted wives and still have comforts to live with? Can't they have both? What do you think? Do you agree, first of all, can you have both? Can you still be religiously devoted and live a comfortable life? Absolutely. So why can't you have both here? Why were they given this ultimatum, either this or that? But
It's like a material war. It's materialistic.
You're right. So it's the same then for anybody could be attached.
The more the sacrifice, the more elevated the status is at.
The promise
Because they will be
of
with
the
your
hereafter is a
Rasulullah
better.
because his status is really high. So in order to match, we have to sacrifice a lot.
Can one of them make the claim to him and say, Ya Rasulullah, I'm with you 100%, but my pillow has a hole in it, my bed is broken, that's all I'm just saying. Can I just have a new pillow and a new bed? I'm with you 100%. That's not going to make me now, I got a new pillow, oh my God, I want everything else. You see why it's important to do this with verses like this? One of the things I try my best to do for 25 years of teaching tafsir is I always try to figure out how can a verse talk to me in 2024, like in this day and age. How do I make this verse relatable to this day and age? This day and age, it's well understood. You all agreed There's nothing wrong with wanting a comfortable life, and you can still be religiously devoted. Here's the thing. You have to think about who these women are. They are now going to play the role of the greatest female example of the entire world, and perhaps, as we all know, some of them will be selected to be the leaders of women in Jannah. The impression that they could leave for other generations to come is what is also like you have to consider when you think about the message of this ayah. Sure, they might be really religious and devoted to him and still have comfortable things, but that's not the point. The point is that there will come a time after they are all gone, like now, where people will look at this, and if they've seen, yeah, Aisha always had new clothing, Hafsa always had new furniture, Maymuna always had the best camels to ride on and to travel on, they always had the best foods. You know, the standard, the bar for living a quote-unquote good Islamic life now reaches a place where most people won't get to. You see what I'm saying? They're going to put out a standard that is so high, the vast majority of Muslim families all around the world, the majority of them may never reach to that standard. They may, if they're trying to be like these wives, they won't reach it. But here now, the fact that they're going to sacrifice, that's something, whether you live a comfortable life or not, you can relate to that. Because I'm sure all of us do our own sacrifices every single day. We all do it. So this was about setting the bar not high, but setting the bar in a way that the Prophet ﷺ told us that the majority of his followers would be what? They will be poor. So if these wives were living this high life, then the majority of the ummah would not be able to connect, to really understand and to extract from it, because there's this is for the rich, the people with high status in our society. It's not for all of us. Now, even the teenage daughter can relate to this. Now, even somebody who's not married can relate to this. Somebody who is married, but they're all working paycheck to paycheck, they can all relate to this now. Does this make sense? So, قل إن كنتن تريدن الحياة الدنيا وزينتها فتعالين أمتعكن وأسرحكن سراحا جميلا. This is the last part that I leave you with. See this part here? سراحا جميلا is the same word. أسرح سراحا جميلا. Sarahan is, okay, I let you go, and he does it in a beautiful way. When was the last time you heard of a divorce where your response to, oh, mashallah, it's amazing how they got divorced. Allahu Akbar, so beautiful. When was the last time you ever done that? Sarahan Jamila. These are the things that really draw me into an ayah, is when I look at just what the message is here, and then I look at life around me and I'm like, my God, what happened? Sarahan Jamil. This is not the only verses that talk like this about separation and divorce. There are tons of other verses that give the same message, that it's not a terrible thing. It doesn't have to be an awful experience, but unfortunately, the lack of knowledge and a bunch of other things, other factors contribute and make the whole process really ugly for anybody who has to go through that. Okay, we'll pause there. The Prophet's wives have noticed their budget have not increased. So we talked about this. They came up, or it should be, they came up with a respectful request to increase their income. We talked about this surplus of Medina, the spoils of war, all of this stuff are now changed and have increased in Medina. Okay, this conversation continues, but we need to go through word by word in every verse. I really want you to take the message of each of these ayat. So inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue with verse 29 next week, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Does anybody have any questions? Okie dokie. Students, there is something here for you that one of the students has brought. So please help yourself to it as you leave. Let me just take it out. Yeah, there are some good copies of the Quran. So I'll just leave it right here. If you need a copy of it, it's the Clear Quran by Dr. Musleh Khan. So if you need one, all the English translation, please help yourself to that, inshallah. It is to honor them always and forever. Allahumma ameen. Okay? Assalamu alaikum.